Welcome everyone, my name is Cesar Gordillo, and today we will start with an amazing story. Do you believe sport can unite a whole country divided for many years by discrimination, pain, and injustice? Well, the rugby did it. It happened in South Africa in the Rugby World Cup in 1995. This event changed the life of many people, and it was an example of tolerance for the rest of the world. But behind this important event, there was an important person who always thought in the unity of a country. That person is Nelson Mandela, and he will be our special guest. Welcome to the interview called Nelson and Rugby Changed the World. Pleasure to meet you, Mr. Mandela.
Pleasure is mine. Thank you for the invitation.
Mr. Mandela, today we invited you because we are your admirers and we want to know more about your life experiences. Tell us about the conflict of that time. What was the problem between black and white?
Those were hard times. The problem was the discrimination of black by whites. We couldn't make many things and we didn't share with them. We were excluded, even in the sport. I refer to rugby. As you know, it was the most serious racist war of the world. Black people couldn't vote.
In 1948, the National Party came to power. At that time, the racial segregation would be the idea of government. The nationalist government classified all people into three races and developed rights and limitations for each. The white minority would have all the privileges, whilst the black majority would be limited in almost all aspects. This movement was named apartheid. That means separation in Africans.
Wow, there was a difficult situation to change. What was the motivation for fight by people?
My main motivation was the union of people and races of South Africa, and that all people share things in common. In addition, I long the freedom of my people. I don't care to give my life for them.
In 1952, Nelson Mandela became part of the Youth League. His ideas about ideology were an African socialist, nationalist, anti-racist, and anti-imperialist. This group was inspired by Gandhi, where Nelson Mandela tried to fight for equality of all races in a peaceful manner. In 1955, Nelson promoted one Freedom Charter, which reflects the aspiration of a multiracial state, equal and democratic, agrarian reform, and a policy of social justice in the distribution of the richness.
That's true. You gave your life for them and you endured the prison for 27 years. How was the experience? How do you feel about it?
The experience in prison was complicated, but I had time to think. I felt happy because my dream came true. I was ready to make a change in my country.
You knew that the rugby was the way to come to the whites, but how did you do to convince to the white people to have democracy?
I knew that there wasn't democracy without peace. There wasn't freedom without reconciliation, and the rugby was the perfect chance to achieve it.
In South Africa, rugby was the sport for whites. This sport was allowed only for white people. Following this, it grew to hatred from the sport black community and identity for white people. Nelson Mandela, who wanted the union, saw the sport as a way to reach out to white people into supporting the first democratic elections, and for this, Nelson promised to organize the World Rugby. In 1993, Nelson Mandela was elected as the first democratically elected South African president, and as he promised, South Africa was selected to organize the Rugby World Cup of 1995.
Tell us about the rugby, the sport that led to the peace.
The rugby was the symbol of the division between blacks and whites. The fact of exclude us of that sport was turning in hate. So I saw in the rugby an expected opportunity to peace.
The South African team had a slogan that represented them. A country is a team. The players knew that was more than a sport. They were the hub of unit of the country. They were in disadvantage, but they felt supported by its people and especially by Mandela. They did the unexpected. They reached the final against the best team in the world at the time.
And what does that happen that day, the day of the final?
My dream came true. All South Africa people celebrated as one nation. It was beautiful day. We won as nation.
That day, Nelson Mandela was the stadium to support the South African team in the final. White people who were in the stadium chanted Nelson and the nation was united for a cause. After a tough game, South Africa team did the impossible, beat the best team in the world, New Zealand. For the first time, black and white people celebrated together. They forgot the difference between races.
Everybody knows about your story. Can you give us a message about the sport?
Of course, the world should know that the sport can create hope, where once there was only despair. It's most powerful than governments and can tear down the walls and racial barriers. The sport can change the world.
Well, Mr. Mandela, thank you so much for coming here and speak about your life example that everyone should know.
Thanks for the invitation. I hope that my achievements can be appreciated by people and be a good example of respect for a new generation.
Well, that was Nelson Mandela, and this is Cesar Gordillo. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you on the next time. Bye bye.
No one is born hating another person because of the color of his skin, or his background, or his religion. People must learn to hate, and if they can learn to hate, they can be taught to love. For love comes more naturally to the human heart than its opposite.